What would be the appropriate decibel level for council? Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Council meeting of January 24th. The first thing that we have in front of us is the agenda for today's meeting. I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Ledwell, seconded by Councillor Aker. Are there any additions to the agenda from outside? None at all? Okay, call it. All those in favor? Jury minded, motion is carried. We are going to move first. Item will be the Public Council meeting minutes of January 10th, which was chaired by our Deputy Mayor while I was away on vacation. Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. And we are going to entertain a motion moved by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Minutes be accepted as presented. Are there any errors or omissions before I call the question? Errors or omissions? Hearing none, we'll call it. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Business arising from the Public Council meeting of January 10th. Any business arising? Councillor Stoyles.
003, I just want an update. I understand that there was a meeting held. I'm just wondering about the famous hedge.
The famous hedge at 20 Bannister. Yeah, it's now infamous as opposed to famous, isn't it? What is the status on that matter right now is what you're looking for?
Yes, please.
And I'm not sure. Would that be you, Michelle? All right. Ms. Peach?
Yes, Your Worship. I met with the lawyer for Mr. Stamp, and basically there was some misunderstanding on the part of Mr. Stamp as to when we trimmed the hedge. He thought that was the end of the matter. So I informed his lawyer that it was not. So we cleared up some gaps, I guess, that his lawyer had in what had happened. The other thing is we've agreed to provide his lawyer with some information, pictures and surveying that we had done to help his client understand the safety issue, because there seemed to be, not a full understanding of that, and he's hopeful that that will help his client understand the issue that we do have, and so we're getting that information together now, and hoping that may resolve the matter from proceeding further in terms of litigation.
All right. So the next step on this would be litigation unless Mr. Stamp himself makes the decision that, okay, he's going to remove this hedge come spring.
That's correct.
Okay.
Sorry,
Anything else, Councillor Stoyles?
He's not supposed to move it until spring, is that something new?
Oh, no, sorry, not necessarily.
I apologize.
Not necessarily
I thought because of winter he couldn't move it now. Am I misinformed?
Yeah, he could probably still remove it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
we're giving another little bit of time to provide that information and get together again. So update you next time.
Perfect.
Okay.
all right. Thank you. Any other business arising again from the minutes of the January 10th public meeting? No more business arising. Okay. This thing better move for me. We have today, Council, one proclamation, and this is on International Development Week, February 5th to the 11th. And basically what it says, and I'm going to read just the therefore today, it says, therefore, I proclaim that the week of February 5th to the 11th, 2012 will be International Development Week in Mount Pearl. I recognize the Federation of Canadian Municipalities' contribution over the past 25 years as a Canadian and world leader in international municipal development. Finally, I invite all citizens to become informed about international development, to show their solidarity with developing countries, and to continue to support Canadian municipalities' international community building efforts. I will sign that today, and we will pass it along to the parties that are interested, and obviously we have in the past supported international development activities on behalf of FCM. Does anybody have a comment or a question relating to that particular proclamation? Hearing none, we'll move along. First committee report is the Community Services Committee report. Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item on our agenda, we are recognizing the city's contribution to the operation of Admiralty House Museum and Archives, and we are recommending that we release the first installment of their 2012 operating grant in the amount of $20,250, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Tessier, seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried. The money is going out the door today? We're spending her today, are we?
But it's a good thing. I mean, Admiralty House, I mean, we all know how proud we are of Admiralty House. I mean, we wish, as with most museums, I'm sure we wish that the visitors numbers were a little higher. But when you do go over there and go in through those doors and you see what a gem it is and you see the displays and the history and the heritage that's protected, it certainly does make it worthwhile.
I was referring just to Admiralty House, is all.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I'm all kinds of money.
I looked down through the list, and you're right, Councillor Watts. There's a bunch today.
All kinds of
We'll
money.
call the question on item number 1, Admiralty House Museum and Archives. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. I may have already done it, but now we've double done it. Councillor Tessier.
That doesn't mean they're getting double the money, though.
That is correct.
Okay. A request was received from the Frosty Festival Committee for the first installment of the Mount Pearl Frosty Festival Operating Grant for 2012. It's necessary, of course, to advance 50% of the funds, and that's in the amount of $19,000 for the ongoing operations of Frosty 2012 as part of a special approved operating grant of $38,000 for their 30th anniversary celebrations, and I recommend that we release that amount.
Moved, seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
It's not in our agenda, and I'll probably, because we're talking Frosty Festival, I'll probably take advantage of this opportunity right now.
Want to talk about the book?
All of Council has the Frosty Festival agenda on their desk. I believe senior staff does as well. Frosty Festival, of course, starts on February the 2nd, and it runs until, help me out, February 12th. And there's so many activities, some new events and some old events that we probably missed. The Jigs Dinner, I can't wait, because I'll never get as big a piece of salt meat in my life as I do at the Jigs Dinner. Of course, it starts with the extravaganza on February the 2nd, Thursday, February 2nd. We've got Buddy What's-His-Name coming this year for Frosty. We've got our seniors visits, dart tournaments, breakfast celebrations, of course. There's something for everybody, for preschoolers all the way up to senior citizens, and so many activities, not just one thing for every age group, but many activities for every age group. So I'd encourage everybody, if they have not done so, to purchase their tickets. They're available at the Glacier box office. They're available up until the day of each event. So some of these events are going to be exceptionally popular, and it might be difficult to get tickets if you wait too long. So I'd encourage everybody, if they're interested in attending any of the Frosty events, to certainly get in gear and get up to the Glacier, get their tickets, because it's going to be a remarkable event once you see the agenda, and once all of the public sees the agenda. I believe it's going in the go bags this week. So once the public sees the agenda as well, they're going to be very impressed.
That's right. This will be circulated to all homes this week.
All homes this week.
Yep.
So it's again, it's going to be a remarkable Frosty Festival. We're really looking forward to it. I'm sure all of council and senior staff and many residents of Mount Pearl are MHAs. Of course, MHA Lane is in the audience, and he usually attends everything with Frosty as well. So I'm sure we'll all be there.
You want to be a calendar girl? You're on the fence?
Last time I did it, I enjoyed it too much.
I'd like
I
to know-
understand Councillor Aker is going to be a calendar girl. What about Councillor Ledwell? Are you
Are you
there?
going to be a calendar girl?
You haven't been asked yet? Oh, well, we'll let Mary know you're available.
This is revenge.
John and I have accepted other duties.
This is.
Yeah,
You
we've
understand?
accepted
You
other
understand
duties.
this is woman's revenge, because we all want to see you all try to squat into a pair of pantyhose.
There you go.
Holy smokes. Pair of Spanx.
We
Everybody
can't
together
we,
for
we
Spanx.
cannot comment. We will call the question on the advance of 50% of the grant. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
And a request was received from the Arena Board of Management for the first installment of the operating grant for 2012. So we are recommending approval to release that amount of $58,000 to the Mount Pearl Glacier Smallwood Arena in accordance with our MOU, their MOU with the city. And I so move.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
That's it for community services.
I thank you so much. We are going to move on. Corporate Services, Deputy Mayor Locke.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few brief items here today. The first is a request for tax consideration, and the committee is recommending approval to exempt the 2012 property taxes in accordance, again, with past practice, as well as business taxes in accordance with our policy for charitable organizations. and there are 20 listed there, and I move that they be accepted as presented.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. 20 charitable organizations with renting or using property in the city. Eh? Wow, there's
Yep.
a lot.
Indeed. That's what
Absolutely.
That's what makes the community.
Question or comment on the list as presented today? All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
The next item, Your Worship, is a grant request from Visions Employment Incorporated, and we're recommending approval of a $500 grant in lieu of business tax exemption for Visions. And again, this is in keeping with past practice. So we'll do it again for 2012, and I so move.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Aker. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
The third item, Your Worship, is the invoices for council approval. There are 4 outlined there today. To Councillor Walsh's point, another expenditure, $211,584.79, and I move that we release these as presented.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Hearing none, we'll call it. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
And the last item, Your Worship, is the emergency management plan. Council is advised that our city's emergency management plan has been reviewed by Governor Newfoundland Labrador, the Director of Emergency Services. There were no changes made to the draft that Council previously approved, and it's now required that we pass a resolution formally to approve the plan after the provincial review which has taken place. So it's recommended that the City of Mount Pearl Emergency Management Plan, as presented and approved by Fire and Emergency Services Newfoundland Labrador, be approved, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Question or comment? This was sometime in the offing. Is that a plan that would appear on our website? I don't know. I'm just wondering. Is that
Oh,
something
it
that
should
would
be.
actually be on our
I
website
would
at
hope
some
that it
point?
would be up on the website, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Now
Yeah.
it's approved, sure.
Yeah. And
It's an ongoing document.
yeah, they never really brought back much to us, so a good job was done, I think. Yeah.
Thorough
Names,
job.
contact information need to be upgraded.
It's a thorough job. That's it for me, Your Worship.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Economic Development, Communications and Tourism Committee, Councillor Stoyles.
We just have a couple of items. The first one is Best Buy Productions had a grand opening. Of course, they're located on 236 Park Avenue, and of course, during their opening, they received some provincial and federal government money, and of course, they're going to be doing movies and such here, right here in Mount Pearl. Movies such like The Lord of the Rings and other productions can take place right here in Mount Pearl, so we're very delighted to have them operate in Mount Pearl, and delighted that they were able to receive such a wonderful grant from both provincial and federal government. And I'm assuming we're going to be sending them a letter congratulating them on that, and
We're sending them a gift.
a gift.
Yeah, we're going to send them a gift.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay. What are
We
gonna
don't know what, but we're going to send them something. Maybe a mug. But they're getting a gift. They have 38 employees in Mount Pearl, and they're moving another 37 in. So there's going to be about like 80 of them over there. It's hard to believe. So, oh yeah, they're the largest production studio east of Montreal, largest independent production studio east of Montreal. It's located here in Mount Pearl. I think we should give Mr. Martin a mug. Everybody agree with me on that?
Absolutely.
There you go.
And a source.
Oh, and one of those source things.
Can I make a comment too?
Yes, go right ahead. I'm sorry, let Councillor Raker speak.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad Councillor Stoles brought that up. I attended the event. I believe Councillor Tessier was there, brought greetings on behalf of the city, as well as MHA Lane was there. One of the things that Ed Martin said, and he was very enthusiastic to be in Mount Pearl, and he paid a very dear compliment, I thought, to our planning department, who embraced this project from the get-go very enthusiastically, turned it around in record time. And of course, you know, with the planning department, typically, they don't get credit when they do great work quite often, because some of the actions are routine, but they do take a few hits from time to time. But I just wanted to say to Director Yefchuk and all the staff, and please pass it on to your staff, they were very complimentary both in the way the application was handled, the timeliness of the application, the receptiveness of the staff, and they're very, very happy to be here in Mount Pearl, and that's in part one of the reasons that they are.
And of course, true to form, we will now turn down their expansion, and they will they'll beat you up, man. It's wonderful. Councillor Stoyles, the floor is yours again.
And another Mount Pearl company, Your Worship, that won an award was Iceberg Quest. they launched a new website and they won an award for that. Last year they won a marketing award, and they're located here in Mount Pearl as well, and I would like to send a letter to them.
Absolutely. I think we should, well, we've been sending welcoming letters and things like that, but these kind of business accomplishments, yes, I think we should recognize that. If we have the appropriate addresses and contact, I believe we do.
I believe we do.
We will send out congratulatory letters to both. Absolutely.
That's it for me, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Stoyles. Engineering Services Committee report, Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one very quick item for information purposes this evening. Of course, we responded to a complaint, or an inquiry, I guess we'll say, from a resident on Fleet Street regarding the installation of the no parking signs this past fall on the inside of Fleet Street, numbers 2 to 18. It was noted, of course, that the engineering staff did go over to Fleet Street and had confirmed that the street is simply not wide enough to allow for parking safely on both sides, and therefore, on the basis of the Highway Traffic Act and as approved by Council, the signs had been installed. That's just for the information of Council.
Okay, thank you very much. While we're talking about engineering services and things like the no parking signs, I know we've had some snow. Our no parking regulations are in place. I think everything ran very smoothly during the last. Jerry, your men and your staff and women up at the depot deserve a pat on the back, I think, for what was done last week in Mount Pearl. I am amazed at how fast all the cul-de-sacs got done. I was really surprised. So, there was a full court press put on at that point. A question for everybody. Somebody answer this for me. Is it or is it not true that if you park in a cul-de-sac, you cannot park end on? You must park parallel to the curb. Is that true?
That is true.
And that if you do park end on, you are subject to a ticket. All right, so I win the bet, is all I'm going to say to you.
Wait, who lost the bet?
The guy who got the ticket. And that's enough said. All right, thank you for that. Anybody else with any comment on what Councillor Ledwell just brought up about the no parking on Fleet Street in particular?
Well, there is one quick thing that I'd like to mention. I didn't know if you were going to mention it. We did put the signs on the inside of the street, Your Worship, and
Yep.
that's normal practice when we're eliminating parking on one side, particularly on crescents like that, because obviously if you put them on the outside, it becomes an even more dangerous situation. So I think we had a couple of concerns raised as to, they were grateful that the no parking signs were placed, but why didn't we place it on the other side of the street? So normally it would be placed on the inside. That would provide the greatest amount of congestion when cars are parked on the inside of a crescent, particularly on the turns.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we put it, and that is in keeping with normal practice.
Perfect, thank
Your
you.
Worship, I will add something
Councillor
to
Stiles?
that too, because I did get a call about the lawns being damaged where we did put the signs, the pole, I think it was 5 poles we put in, and our staff will go up in the fall and we'll, in spring.
Next spring, yeah.
And we'll fix it. Because of the time of the year, I guess it seemed like more damage to normal, and we went up, our committee actually went up and looked at it, and there was, 1 or 2 that certainly was a little bit wider than normal when they were doing it, but I guess it was because of the time of the year, and it was sods were easier to come up and things like that. But there was some damage, no doubt, and our staff will be back up and we'll fix it.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude engineering, Councillor Ledwell? Any final comments? No? That's it. Thank you. We're moving on then. Planning and Land Use Committee report. Councillor Aker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item number 1 here is the automotive use amendment. On December 20th, I believe, we tabled a notice of motion to change the regulations. To change them basically for the rural land zone, basically where we could have the restrictions would be on automotive uses, not necessarily automotive sales. This is to furnish an application that we have for some property development. The property that will be built will be in the general commercial zone, but the parking area will be in the rural zone. So as a result of making this change right here, we would allow in the rural zone, we would allow the parking.
Right.
We'll change our regulations to go hand in hand with that. And basically, we also called for a briefing session, which was scheduled for January 9th. Nobody expressed any interest in attending, so there's no objections to this. And I would like to move, but before I do, I want to ask the question. Avalon Ford, which is up there, they have parking as well in the back of their property. which is on gravel, as I understand it. And that gravel parking lot is in the rural zone. So does this amendment has no impact on them? I'm assuming that development regulation that existed at the time it was approved is what basically
Yes,
was in effect, and
that is
remains
still
in
considered
effect,
the
right?
rear.
Yeah.
That's considered the rear of their
So
building. yeah.
it's on a go-forward basis, basically.
Yeah.
All those parking lots, basically, in the rural zone would have to be paved.
Yes.
And I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Akers, seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Next item, Your Worship, is we had an application for a furniture upholstery business on 86 Nash Crescent. This house is located in the residential high density zone, and approximately 15% or 14 square meters would be occupied by the upholstery business. Home occupation, a business occupation of a home is permitted, subject to Section 7 of our Special Development Regulations. And I'd like to point out for Council's benefit, Section 7.16.1, the use shall be in the form of a small appliance repair, sporting goods, educational use, or similar uses. Upholstery repair does not fall within the range of this guideline or this regulation, and for that reason, we're basically recommending that council refuse this application. And when you look at it, I guess the small nature of this house, I can see like trying to get large couches in, trucks pulling up to drop off the couches, and that this does not seem like the right activity. It doesn't seem to fit very well with this particular neighborhood, and I move we refuse the application.
Can I just ask a question? And I'm not.
Yes, thank you. You've moved the motion and it's seconded. All right, Councillor Walsh?
Okay, we haven't voted on this.
No. It's just that we opened debate at this point.
And I guess in terms of the debate, because it's the first time I think I've had an opportunity to look at it, we do allow small appliance repairs. And I just wondered.
What's the difference? Yeah,
Not really, I think a small appliance would include washers. I don't know how. Is that large or small? What's a small appliance? That would be so what's small and what's large?
We talked about.
I don't think we delineate quite like
I asked the same
that.
question in committee. The staff response is that you typically see small appliance defined as a toaster or a kettle or something along those lines, a microwave. You normally wouldn't consider a washer or a dryer, which I guess would be as close an appliance in terms of size to a large chair or a couch. We normally wouldn't consider that to be in the small appliance category. I guess it's in the big appliance category. So for that reason, we stuck with the regulation.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I was going to speak.
I was just wondering that, in some situations like that, because we are kind of splitting hairs, that's the only point. And I'm not saying that this would be welcome in this neighborhood, and I don't mind saying I wouldn't want it in my neighborhood, to be quite frank with you, whether it's a furniture, upholstery, or, small, large appliance. But it seems like we're splitting hairs a little bit on it. So I just wondered, did you consider in your deliberations in committee whether or not something like this could be somewhat more discretionary? If there was objection from the neighborhood, we'd be able to eliminate it, and if there weren't, we'd be okay with it. Because personally, I'd have no issue with it if the neighborhood was okay with it in that case. And I mean, we are talking about the difference between small appliances and large appliances, and some of the other things that do qualify does sort of sometimes make you wonder. And I know we have regulations in place that are somewhat stringent for good reason, so that we don't every time have to go through a discretionary or public hearing or anything of that nature. Just asking the question, did you consider that?
No, actually, we did.
Go ahead, you're responding to him because I had a question asked as well.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. No, I was going to say, no, we didn't. So I guess maybe, and that's a very good recommendation to have a look at it. Perhaps that we should refuse the application today, but take the issue back to committee. Regarding, as you say, the splitting of the hairs, and see basically perhaps maybe we could broaden the regulation if necessary and bring that back in.
What about the implications of having that included for discretionary might be?
So I'd ask the support of council to refuse the application, but take it back to committee for a review of the regulation.
Well, I would rather that we voted on this because whether we're going to review we're going to vote on this first. All right, Councillor Stoyles.
I was going to say, Your Worship, the gentleman called me, and I referred him to the planning department when he called because I knew we do offer small, home-based businesses. And when I was chatting with him, he talked about repairing chairs and skidoo covers and things like that. And I said to him that, because of traffic, we would have to have a public hearing if traffic was coming to his street and dropping things off. And when he said upholstery, the first thing I said was Chesterfields and things like that. He said, no, he said, I normally don't do Chesterfields. He said, if I do, I take the material and go into somebody else's house and do that. He said, normally I do small upholstery jobs. And that was my understanding from talking to the gentleman. So, and he said it wouldn't be nobody ever coming to his house. He would be going by, doing an estimate at the person's home, and then picking it up himself. And that. So I just wanted to mention that. Now, I don't know the gentleman. I don't know. He's called me actually the weekend concerning the snow clearing issue as well. But I've never met the gentleman. I don't know. Yeah, I know where he lives, obviously, but other than that, that's about it.
Are you speaking in favor of approving
Well,
his application as opposed to?
Well, if he's looking at small, small appliances and skidoo seats and things like that, I don't have a problem with it if it's the same as a small engine repair or something like that. So maybe we should take it back and look and put a restriction on it. I don't know. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want someone bringing Chesterfields back and forth living next door to me, as Councillor Walsh had indicated. But if he's looking at doing small appliances and taking them himself, I really.
Yeah, I recall that we've run into a problem with someone who's doing some small appliance repair, and they've been selling refrigerators and washers and stoves out of their driveway, and it's caused us all kinds of further consternation. I'm going to Councillor Tessier, an indication from Councillor Walsh. You wish to address something again after Councillor Tessier?
Depends on what you have to say.
All right, Councillor Tessier.
I know that we do sound like we're nitpicking a little bit, but is part of the concern not that large trucks will be frequenting this neighborhood to drop off larger pieces of furniture? Because I'm not quite sure how you get a chair in a car. You get it in a pickup for sure, but a sofa, of course, would need a larger truck. And I guess, is that part of the concern with this not being currently permitted in our regulations?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Yevchek.
Your Worship, in terms of the information that we received, thank you very much. In terms of the information that we received, certainly we didn't get the impression that they were just very small covering, but the unit that we're talking about is a townhouse unit, the end of a series of row dwellings. The understanding is that they're going to do work in their living room, in the living room of the dwelling. If they indeed, and certainly the information I've received from staff is, they are of the understanding, and we can clarify this if you wish, that there'll be things like chairs, perhaps, couches. Now, the first I've heard about the covers for screws and all that. But if indeed that's the case, then we question the nuisance factor that will create for the adjoining neighbors, and that's part of the concern. Certainly, if he's doing work in his living room as part of the proposal, that's certainly, in our view, not the most appropriate way of having a residential unit. So.
All right, thank you. Councillor Walsh, you something to add?
Yeah, well, not to add, but first of all, I think that's a good clarification, except that our regulations don't specify that it can't be in a living room area, and we realize that it says the percentage of the house, of the dwelling. I guess it would be it'd be more of a nuisance to them if it's in the living room than to the neighbors. The coming and going is what would be problematic in terms of the neighborhood.
Well,
and
the
whether or not
subsidiary, that it is subsidiary to the fact that it is a residential dwelling is the key piece when you start saying, I want to do this stuff in the living room.
And I guess, to Mr. Yevchek's point, the fact that, maybe some of these regulations could have different interpretations as it applies to, for example, high density housing, and in this case it is. So you have attached housing, it may be more intrusive. I liked what Councillor Aker is suggesting. I think based on the information that we have and our own regulations right now, I don't think we have much choice but to turn it down today. But if they're willing to go back and look at it and maybe consider some of the things that we recommended, particularly in terms of the discretionary usage. One of the other things we need to be mindful of, sometimes people need to have an opportunity to better themselves, and maybe by making a few dollars and working from home, it may provide an opportunity for this gentleman and lots of other people to be able to do a little better for themselves. So I'd hate to turn it down flat, knowing that there's a fairly wide breadth of circumstances in which we do allow businesses to operate, including things like dance studios and where there's a lot of coming and going. I realize, Councillor Tessier, that it's not moving large furniture, but again, I think we may be splitting hairs. And if the neighborhood dwellers themselves didn't have a large objection, I'm not so sure that we should be carrying to the extent that we do in terms of having definitive, like large, small appliance differences. I don't know. It could may be open to interpretation. I like your suggestion. I think that's what we should do.
Councillor Aker, do you want to defer, or we're going to vote on this and go back?
I'd prefer to keep the motion tabled, Your Worship.
Okay.
One thing that's been said here today, there's been a lot of new information brought to the table. The letter that we received as part of the application said that the gentleman would be recovering furniture only. So, from that, you have to look at the range of what furniture is. There was no mention of, snowmobile covers and the like, right? So you're talking, I guess, office chairs and bigger, right? You know what I mean? Which, to me, when the definition of a small appliance was compared to that, again, and I was thinking toaster and the like, there's no comparison. One is a lot larger than the other. But if we let the motion stand, vote on it, I'd be glad, and I'm sure the department would as well, to have a look at it in consideration of what we do the next time.
All right. That being the case, we'll let the department actually handle that. But for the purposes here today, we're going to vote on the motion as it is currently stated. It is moved and seconded that this particular application, as put forward, be rejected. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? The motion is carried.
Thank
Next
you, Your
item.
Worship. Number 3 is an order was issued for 54 Mortimer Drive on January 13th. It has to do with some fence that's coming down, as well as some wood and other debris in the back garden. But in consideration of the fact that this is winter, we'd like to waive the normal 2-week period, but we'd also like to set a deadline for the order to be carried out to May 31st, 2012, and that would allow for the spring thaw to set in and give the homeowner a chance to do.
You're going to give them right to May 30. You're going to give them right to May 31st.
May 31st, and you know something? Hopefully, our winter will be over.
Let us hope so. It is.
And I motion that, yes.
Okay. It is moved and it is seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Any question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
Next item is a notice of motion. In accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act, 1988, take notice that in accordance with Council's public notification policy, I will, at a regular meeting of Council, move an amendment to the Mount Pearl Development Regulations, 1988, that, if enacted, will amend the land use zoning map of the Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010 by rezoning land in the Kenmount Hill area from rural to urban reserve comprehensive development area. The intention of this amendment is to rezone those lands currently zoned as rural and located above the 190-meter contour to an urban zoning to signal Council's intention to encourage the development of these lands for urban purposes, subject to the approval of a detailed comprehensive development scheme and provided adequate municipal services are in place to accommodate the urbanization of these lands. Those lands not being rezoned shall maintain their present zoning. Dated today.
All right. I don't think it's going to make for much of a debate when it comes back, but this is a notice of motion we have to serve. With developments in the region, I guess it's fair to say we're in.
Yep, basically.
And we have some land above the 190 we'd like to see developed, and this is the first step in getting that to happen.
It is. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, sir, very much on that. I'm noticing, Councillor, that have you missed item 4?
No, I believe there was an email today.
That's the one we're pulling back?
We're going to take that back to Committee of the Whole.
Thank you so much. I forgot that.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
The next motion relates to development permits.
Yep.
Permits numbers 1, 3, and 4 for the period January 3rd to 20th are before you, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Motion carried.
Next one are the building construction permits, residential in the amount of $14,500, and commercial in the amount of $3,611,200, and that is for the period January 8th to 20th. And I'd like to move those, and I also have a question once it's seconded.
Moved and seconded, and a question.
Yes, there's a biggie there for $3,450,000 on
Yeah,
Beckland
Building
Road.
C, it
What is
says,
that ag-
Beckland
What
Road.
is that exactly, if you don't mind?
Your Worship, that is part of the ongoing development of the Beckland subdivision development. If council will recall, we approved subdivision plan sometime last year, I'm going to say mid-year. I believe it's 7 buildings in the Beckland subdivision. And Beckland subdivision is the development by Eastport Properties. I think there was an article in the paper just this
Yep.
past week about Eastport Properties. And they have land holdings here, and they are building a number of large buildings, large buildings that will be leased. I understand the buildings will be owned by the company, but leased to prospective tenants. And each building is going to be approximately the same size as this building. So we can look forward to good industrial growth over the next year or two,
In
not
that
only
area.
just this area. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. We'll call the question on that. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried. And that concludes committee reports. We are up to new business, and I don't know where the deputy mayor started on the 10th. Started over there. We're starting over here. Councillor Ledwell. New business.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one quick thing, and I just wanted to add to what Councillor Tessier was saying earlier about the Frosty Festival booklets. Just want to remind residents that these won't be necessarily delivered in the same way they were in the past. These are going to be in the Telegram Go bags, so they'll be in with all of the flyers and everything. So watch for them. Don't let them slip away, because there's lots of great information in here.
That's right. And of course, I'm sure if a taxpayer calls us, we'll let them have ours. Absolutely. Thank you. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one quick thing. We had a Public Works Committee meeting on Thursday morning. That was, of course, the call was out for the snow on Friday, overnight Thursday and on Friday. And, of course, we jokingly said, but we were actually very serious, we jokingly said to Mr. Antle, this is going to be your litmus test. This is going to be your first test. And I just wanted to add to what you said. I thought that not only Mr. Antle and his crews, but, I know there were some problems with equipment, and those are typical things in the midst of Murphy's Law comes into full effect usually. Things break down under duress in the middle of a snowstorm. That's what happens. But I think, in fairness, our crews did just a fabulous job, and I think we did retain the crews overnight on Friday, and it cleaned up and did, in many cases, what essentially became a third and fourth cut. The subdivisions were cleaned up, but the main thoroughfares were done by early afternoon on Friday. I thought they did a splendid job. As a matter of fact, I was on the go very early Saturday morning, and as I was out and about 20 to 9 on Saturday morning, they were clearing the sidewalks on Old Placentia Road. So you can't get much better than that. It was a fairly heavy fall of snow, and it came in a relatively short period of time. So you passed your test, but as the mayor said, pass along congratulations as well, where it really is deserved, to the people who are out there day and night clearing the streets, and just a great job, and keep it up. Thanks.
Amen to that. Councillor Stoyles.
I totally agree with what Councillor Walsh said. I know I sent Mr. Antle several emails concerning issues that people were calling me, and within minutes I was getting an email back from him, and I got to say it was a great job. Your Worship, I'd like for you to send off a letter of sympathy to the Collins family. Of course, Collins worked with
mom
us, and his
passed away,
His
yep.
mom passed away. I was at the funeral service this morning, and so was a number of our staff. So
Yep.
it was great to see other staff there as well.
Good.
So I wanted to mention that. Also, Your Worship, last week I attended the kickoff for Minor Hockey Week with Hockey Newfoundland Labrador, and our own hockey moms here kicked off the event, and it was certainly a pleasure to represent our fine city and to be at that event. And it was an Avalon tournament, and I think they had 22 teams, and I must say it was great. They don't play off the win or lose. It's just a fun tournament. Each team gets to play 3 games, and at the end of it then they just have a celebration. So it was really good to see those kind of events taking place. Also, Your Worship, I wanted to mention a couple of things, and as was mentioned earlier today, our MHA is sitting in the audience, and I received, as most residents in the district, or every resident district, received a letter from our new member, Paul Lane, informing people if the energy efficient program that Newfoundland Labrador Housing has on the go. And I want to say it was great to get this in the mail, and actually I took time to call several residents, and I contacted Mr. Lane and give him the names of people who might be able to qualify for this, because sometimes, even though it comes to people, they don't understand it, they don't know that they're can qualify for it. And I wanted to say it was great to see our MHA take the initiative and take the time to send this out to all the residents in his district, and I certainly appreciated getting it. And I know if 3 people for sure in the district that's going to be applying for this. And when you look at Mount Pearl, sometimes you say, well, we're a rich community, but we have a lot of seniors that live alone and can't afford to do some necessary repairs and works to their home, and I was delighted to see this, and that some of our residents will be using it. And also on another, I received an email from Steve Kent today about the construction of the Team Goujo Highway going to be starting.
Yep.
And I wanted to say great, that Steve sent us the email, and that the Team Goujo Highway is going to be started, and looks like it's going to be completed towards the end of 2013. Or
More like the summer of
2014.
2014.
Or 2014 is what.
Truth
what
be
he had
told.
said. So anyway, it was great to see about that.
Okay.
That's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've got a couple of items here. The first had to do speaking with a resident today, and they questioned about our regulations for fireworks. She happened to be out walking her dog last evening on Richard Nolan Drive, Old Placentia Road, that corner there, and someone set off fireworks and, of course, terrified the dog, a relatively big dog, and bolted and nearly did damage to her and some pedestrians on the street. So again, she questioned what regulations we had in place here in the city of Mount Pearl. I know we did look at it in terms of restricting it to New Year's Eve celebrations, Canada Day celebrations, and again, I also the weekend saw some fireworks. I think it was Saturday evening at about 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, again being set off. And her concern was the safety of her dog, first of all, but also of some pedestrians. And that dog just went berserk, she said, and bolted. So again, I said I would raise it here today because she was legitimately concerned about it, and she asked if there's anything that could be done. And she made the comment that it's difficult when these fireworks are being sold everywhere. It's hard to regulate that, And I explained to her that if someone sets them off, by the time you get there, it's hard to pinpoint exactly who set the fireworks off and stuff like that. So again, I know we talked about it there, and that is our policy. Was it not that we restricted it to a? No, we don't have a policy. No, okay. I know we looked at it at some depth 2 or 3 years back, and we went into great detail there. But I said I certainly would raise it, and again, it's something that we're going to have to look to. If it means.
Why don't you make a motion to send it to planning to let them have a look at it?
Indeed.
I'll be happy to second it.
Yeah.
I think
To look at it, and even if we got to go further and make some suggestions that maybe the sale of these have to be restricted, and because it's going to be hard, it's going to be very difficult for us as a municipality to control the residential use of these if they're sold everywhere. It's very difficult to do so.
But not if you have a permit.
And that's the point, yes. So, and I know we looked at it before, so I will move that we, turn it over to the Planning and Development Committee and see if they can look into that, investigate. I know we did extensive work probably 3 or 4 years back now. I know former Director of Infrastructure and Public Works did some considerable work into it, but I don't think I think we realized that it was much bigger than that we had intended.
It's a big problem this year.
Absolutely it is. And
you know what's happening? I think, just to add, I don't need.
I'm assuming that the motion is on the floor and
yeah, I moved it.
everybody
Yep.
is accepting
Okay.
the motion. All right, well, I'm going to let you, are you finished your opening comments on this
I
issue?
am. Yep.
Councillor Tessier, Councillor Walsh.
Changed. change.
Sorry.
I just want to say, I think what's happening, because I wondered, my hair's getting in my eyes. I wondered what was happening. But I think what's happening is all these gas stations, corner stores, etc., that have them after New Year's, now they sell them for
Reduced
like,
cost.
about a third of the cost.
Yeah.
So people are buying them up now and setting them off now,
Yeah.
and they'll use them for the summer. But that's part of the problem, that there's no regulation, that they're using them. Rose was out last night with the dogs at 8 o'clock, and it must have been the exact same fireworks in the location. I was going to say the dog was walking Rose, but that probably would be perhaps more correct. But it's a problem, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And it's going on almost every evening now, somewhere.
Well,
in the city.
I do know for sure we have a file on it. We even had a draft regulation written.
We did. It was quite extensive.
You know. Unfortunately, I think what got us is that it was too extensive.
Exactly.
And we need to pare it down to something that's more reasonable for a community of our type of stuff.
Agreed.
Yeah. Everybody in favor of this? Yes. All right, it's gone back to planning, motion is carried, it'll go back to planning will come back, hopefully with some form of recommendation.
Good suggestion, definitely.
And
If somebody comes and gets a permit for it, I don't have a problem with it.
You don't have a
we don't have a permitting
No, I'm
system
saying
yet
if
for it.
we put up something in place and somebody wants.
Well, that's what they're gonna
have
investigate and
a special
see.
occasion, and
Real soon,
okay.
yeah.
What to do and how to do it.
Well, to Councillor Walsh's point, I mean, I see it comparable to, pesticide use, residential pesticide. I mean, if they're being sold in the stores, it's very hard to regulate people, to do that. And that's why I suggest that maybe we got to go a little further and request some form of regulation at the provincial level for the sale of these things, And, I mean, heaven forbid, I'd hate to see someone get injured using these, but they're quite numerous out there. The other thing, Councillor Stolz mentioned the Team Gushu Highway, and I was reading in I'm sure it was today's paper, yesterday's paper, about the traffic snarl, traffic jam in the area, and all the off-ramps and stuff like that. So I would just like to sort of put it on the radar. I know that one of the off-ramps for the Team Gushu is slated to come down by Topsail Road there, down through the entrance into Mount Pearl Square. That's going to be the off-ramp that ties into Dunn's Road there and the lower end of Park Avenue. So given the concerns that they are expressing about the Torbay bypass and other areas, I just want to make sure that I know that they did some traffic investigation, they being the province, because when I sat on the planning committee, that was certainly a concern for me and the committee, and we met with, I think it was Minister Henderson at the time, at the Confederation building, and because I think that's going to generate a huge volume of traffic. There's going to be a lot of people taking that off-ramp, and the sharp bend in that road down there and the street. I just want to make sure that that's not doesn't fall off the radar. I think that it's worth noting that in your commentary or meetings or what have you, that just to raise that. And the last item, Your Worship, I had the pleasure of attending the Mount Pearl Minor Hockey Association appreciation banquet to bring greetings on behalf of council, and it was, as always, it's a very nice event. The president, I think, from the New Brunswick Minor Hockey Association was in attendance, as was people from Hockey Newfoundland and Labrador. And the comment was made by one of the executives from H&L, Hockey Newfoundland and Labrador, was that Mount Pearl is one of the few associations that put such an effort into rewarding or acknowledging the volunteers. And we are held, the minor hockey in Mount Pearl is held as a model right across, certainly across Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as other parts of Canada. So I just want to tip my hat to, first of all, the executive. I know the hours they put in because the president, Mr. Bennett, works with me, and I know the time he puts into that, as well as all the executive, but also the coaches, the parent liaison, the parent reps, the assistant coaches, the managers, the trainers, the hockey moms, the hockey dads, the referees. I mean, it's quite an operation, and I just want to again acknowledge them for the great work that they all do to bring such a great sport and such a great program to the residents of Mount Pearl. And that's it for me, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Tessier, new business?
Yes, actually, just to that point, Deputy Mayor, I saw it in the Goulds Arena, I think it is. It's a sign hanging, and it says, please don't criticize our coaches, referees, volunteers, officials, and it goes on, unless you are willing to replace them. And I thought that was so effective, because we can be very, very quick sometimes to criticize the people who are volunteering their time to do a job.
Point well made.
And I think that it's extremely important that, sitting back and complaining about it, probably not that effective, unless you can offer solutions if you see a real problem. Otherwise, perhaps you might not be giving credit where credit is due. So it's a good point. I saw last night on the NTV News, they were there at the SPCA, and they were talking about animals. There's apparently a lot of animals being left outside this winter. And we brought it up here several times. I know I brought it up several times as well. And we always had we're always under the impression that an animal needed food, water, and adequate shelter. But she said last night they need insulated shelter. It was the first time I ever heard that, actually, that they needed insulated shelter. Now, I got to be honest with you. I don't know why anybody would leave an animal outside in the winter anyway for an extended period of time. I don't think that that's necessary. I think if you have a pet, you should take care of your pet properly and not leave them out in cold conditions like we experience in the winter here. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that to people's attention. I know that I'm seeing a tremendous number of actual cats roaming, and I know I sound like MHA Lane when he was here as well. But right now, in the winter especially, I just don't understand it. I don't understand why people open the doors and let their animals go in the dead of winter. So I would encourage everybody to not do that. I know that our pound, sees a lot of animals coming through there, and that's not a good thing. I mean, if an animal gets out by accident, that's one thing, but to actually willingly open your door or to tether an animal on outside in the winter for extended periods of time is not necessary, and I would encourage everybody to stop doing it. Also, I received a phone call. I know we had some weather on Friday, and it wasn't a complaint as much as it was a concern. It was somebody, the garbage collection on their street doesn't usually happen until a little later in the morning, but I suspect because of our pending weather, the garbage truck came by earlier, and the people who were used to putting out their garbage at a certain time, like 9:30, for example, suddenly didn't have their garbage out in time to have it removed. When we have pending weather, especially, and of certainly any time, because, I mean, really, our garbage regulations say that the garbage should be out by 8, is it? 8 in the morning? So, really...
And can't be out before 6.
That's right, but it's fair game that after 8 o'clock in the morning, you really should have your garbage out. Again, I mean, it wasn't a complaint particularly, but it was a concern. It was commentary, I suppose. But especially when we have weather coming, you can expect the trucks to come anytime from 8 on, even if it's not your usual garbage pickup time, I guess in an effort to beat the snow, to pick up as much garbage as we can before we begin our snow clearing efforts as well. So I just want to send that reminder out to residents as well, that from 8 in the morning on, even if your regular garbage pickup time is usually later in the day, you should still err on the side of caution and put your garbage out if you do want it picked up that day.
And, of course, there is a way now that you can put it out the evening before.
That's right.
Buy the right container.
It's a specific container. That's right. It is a specific container, so
And
people
you
need
can
to be
do that.
cognizant of that as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Aker.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I heard a rumor, and I'm hoping this is true. Maybe the Director of Public Works and Infrastructure.
I heard a rumor.
Mr.
A heck of a way to start.
Are the trails groomed? As an avid walker and I know this is hard to believe, a sometime runner, I love to get off the beaten path, and I understand that our trails have been groomed?
Yep. Mr. Randall, go ahead.
Yes, the main trail from, I would call it the trailway, from Donovan's down to the end of Dunn's Road. I walk on it myself, actually, quite frequently. I walked on it on Sunday. The snow was very good for grooming. So we did put the groomer out on that main trail and actually went up around Powers Pond as well. And we may be actually getting through it even more today. I didn't get an update this afternoon. But I saw a lot of people on it on Sunday, and I understand a lot of people walking on it today.
Any skiers?
I saw lots of snowshoers.
I thought we'd have it done.
Lots of
Yeah.
snowshoers.
Good.
Yeah, good.
I would have thought maybe, though, the snowshoers might be a bit disappointed that they were groomed, but there's plenty of trails, I'm sure, that are not groomed, right? You know what I mean? Were they? Yeah,
Yeah.
they like the fresher snow, I think, right? Good stuff. And I guess I also want to throw further to what Councillor Walsh was saying about the great snow clearing effort there on Friday. City Hall did remain open that day, and like I know where I work, and I suppose many of you, basically a lot of employers shut down for that day. The staff, you got to admire the dedication for coming in. It was fairly safe. The roads weren't too bad, especially driving here in Mount Pearl. And I want to commend the staff for keeping City Hall open, because in addition to all the work that gets done outside on the streets to clear off the snow, the nerve center is inside, I guess you could say, as well as all the administrative support staff. And it's nice to know that City Hall basically was open for business.
I never thought I'd see the day I sounded like my father, but in my day,
I never
right?
thought I'd
There
see
is
the-
no way anything should have been closed on Friday. In my day, nothing would have been, including having to walk to school.
I was surprised that the provincial government closed. That's the one that shocked me. The university, you know. Well, there you
That
go.
was-
the
well,
CRA.
Come on, Revenue Canada, admit it, buddy. You were out there.
Taxes will always be collected. I also wanted, Your Worship, give Council a heads up. February 15th, put this in your calendar. This is something that Deputy Mayor Locke and I, who are members of the Affordable Housing Committee, along with Shirley Boone and Jim Greenland, we're planning a pancake breakfast for homelessness. And this basically will be in conjunction with CBC, and they do a pancake homelessness fundraiser on Shrove Tuesday, and all of us typically participate over at Smitty's
Are
Restaurant.
we undefeated,
here in
or
Mount
did we
Vernon.
lose last time?
Well, hey,
No, definitely undefeated.
I think we're
Okay.
3-0.
We're 3-0.
We're 3-0. The Golden Pancake.
Should be hung up
It's
out there.
somewhere here in the city. It should be in the Hall of Fame. Hopefully, we'll see it Friday night, right? You know. But I wanted to encourage council at lunchtime at Park Place with the Mount Pearl Seniors Independence Group. The seniors are all going to pay $5, and basically, if you guys can get your aprons on and your hats, come on down, and you can cook, you can serve, and everybody should have a good time. And the best thing is we'll raise some money for homelessness, not just here in Mount Pearl, but in the entire
Sounds
region.
good.
Right, you know. Final thing, Your Worship, is I went to the hockey game the weekend. Senior Blades played Cornerbrook. Great hockey. Good crowd there Saturday night. Great crowd there on Sunday. It's freezing cold up there. I didn't want to bring this up for the purposes of criticizing the glacier, but I know you've had some conversations to see if maybe the heat can get turned up a little bit. But I want to encourage all our residents to get out. It's a great experience. Go up and enjoy a hockey game. It's only $12 to get in and support the Senior Blades.
I
Thank
found
you.
out, by the way, what happened about why it was so cold there on Sunday afternoon. I went to the hockey game Sunday afternoon as well, and we darn near froze our derrieres off in the building. Found out what happened. That EcoChill system is so fine in what it does. It actually reads things like the amount of carbon in the air. So when you put 400 breathing human beings in the building, the thing kicks in and says, oh, carbon. We need fresh air. And it blew in fresh air. Nothing wrong with that, except there's a 600-watt electric heating coil that somebody is supposed to hit on. And that didn't happen. And that's why it felt so cold. It really was colder than normal. Well, exactly. Exactly. But we that little piece got in. It was, you know.
That was two of the biggest crowds they had.
Except I will say this: great game on Sunday. I didn't see the one Saturday night, but it was a great game on Sunday. Too bad they lost, but hey. And who have we got? We got the Caribous in on Friday night. Everybody. Is it the Cataracts or the Caribous? Cataracts Friday, is it? Yeah. No betting. All right.
Your Worship, one other thing.
One other thing. We're going around again.
Well, I missed something, and I reading from my screen, sometimes I do that. During the storm, one of the things that I noticed was the RCMP chasing skidoors. In my neighbourhood specifically, the RNC was out, and I'm just wondering if anybody's skidoo was picked up or charged, because I don't know. I know that there was 2 skidoos on Richard Knoll Drive and on the trailway, because they were trying to get off, and the police...
Well, I hope they know that the municipal guys can take their skidoo too.
Yeah, and I don't know if our guys ended up being out as well, but I know that the RNC was out. I think they had 2 or 3 cars going around the neighbourhood.
Good.
And we didn't know what was going on. Initially, we saw the police cars going around, but there was a couple of skidoos out around the streets, going up and down, and the police was chasing them. So
Well, that's
I
good.
just
That's
wanted
good to know. Thank you. Hearing no other new business, I have one little item. Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, a long-term employee of the city of Mount Pearl will officially retire. I think he is known to all of us. Gerard Philpott will be leaving our employ after something like 23 years, I think it is, that he's actually been here. Gerard has been an outstanding employee, but in the area of public relations, he has been incredible. Every organization that you can think of in this city at some point or other has had deals or had dealings with Gerard Philpott. And we're going to have a little celebration for him on Friday. But I wanted to put it on the formal record of the city that he is a man that we are going to sorely miss. His attitude and approach has been fantastic. I'm sorry? it was nice, and even the Sport Alliance, the Frosty Festival Committee recognized his dedication to the festival over the years and the work that he's done. Gerard is one of those guys that manages to make things happen sometimes around the rules. And, he's just a great fellow, very enthusiastic, funny as heck, by the way, and a lousy golfer, which is something I take great delight in. But we're going to be saying goodbye to him officially on Friday. I hope a lot of council can turn out. It's 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. And, Gerard, wonderful employee. On that note, I'm going to call for adjournment, moved by Councillor Tessier that we adjourn. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.